Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHorder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Erin Campbell.
Hi.
Ruben Bressler.
Hi there. How you doing?
How's things?
Things are great. Yeah, I'm ready to talk about some Selesnya cards.
Yeah, Green White has a treasure trove of interesting ways to represent itself.
Yeah, as a passionate Maverick player, I'm excited for this particular set of cards. I'm not so sure that Erin would like the Maverick lifestyle, but
yeah, most of the cards on my list are cards that I'm not happy to see, but they are the least unhappy. How can I word this? The cards that I'm least upset to see. So.
Sure.
Wow. Least upset. That's the bar.
Least upset to see.
That's the bar.
Yeah.
All right. So,
and a surprising inclusion that you probably won't see coming.
Okay. We'll stay tuned for that. So, Ruben, for this week's honorable mention, who did you choose from last week's comments?
I chose Logan S., who wrote, for me at least, Overrun is the quintessential green effect after mana acceleration. Being able to giant growth your entire team and give them trample is the basis for elf go-wide strategies in all formats from Legacy to Modern to EDH, and as such has also become a magic verb, which is a big deal to me. You know the way to my heart is if your thing becomes a verb, I'll overrun my team and attack you. That's a very good one. So Logan is this week's winner.
That's awesome. So Logan has won a $50 gift certificate thanks to CoolStuffInc.com for the store that he can spend on whatever he wants. Logan, get in touch with us at Magic Mike's Cast at Twitter. Tell me what your last name is, and I will hook you up with that super cool gift certificate, and we'll figure out all the details. That said, I agree with Overrun. I think Overrun's cool. I think there's overruns in every set. I think you can easily refer to something as Overrun, and people don't automatically say, well, it has to do +3/+3 and trample. It's like, no, it does the thing where your team gets huge and you crush people.
Yeah. There's a bunch of Trial of Solidarity, for example, is an overrun effect because it pumps your entire team. Mm-hmm. There are much more obvious ones like Overcome from the most recent couple expansions, but Overrun, been there forever. Originally was an uncommon. That effect got upgraded to rare pretty regularly once Overwhelming Stampede and Friends came on the map because it was just too ridiculous.
Yeah. So we're gonna move here to number 10. Erin, what is your number 10?
Well, speaking of green creatures snowballing out of control, I recently got to experience this card for the first time in EDH the other day. I did an EDH stream where I was taking my new Hapatra deck for a spin, and there was somebody that joined our pod who was using this card as their commander, and it looked really innocuous. It's a card that I haven't seen many people use as their commander, and I admit when I first saw it, I might have scoffed a little bit, where I was like, well, that's cute, until I saw all of the enablers that they had, and I saw that they were kind of building an elf ball, and then things very quickly spiraled out of control. My number 10 is Selvala, Explorer Returned.
Yep.
So for those playing along at home, she is from the Conspiracy set. She's one of the Conspiracy characters. She costs one colorless, a green and a white. She's an elf scout. And she has an ability called Parlay, which you don't see very much. And basically what that means is you tap her, each player reveals the top card of his or her library. For each non-land card revealed, Selvala's controller adds one green to their mana pool and gains a life, and then each player draws a card. By itself, it doesn't do much, but when you're running a lot of things, there's an artifact that can untap creatures, there's a land that can untap creatures, and you're doing this multiple times, gaining life, drawing cards. It just gets out of hand really, really quickly. And I have a new respect for this card after that. And I also love Selvala as a character. I think her costume is really great. And just having come off of this experience that happened last week, I figured she had to be my number 10.
It looks like an ability that just can completely go nuts. You have untap here, do this. You're drawing cards and you're gaining mana. Like, wow.
And it's EDH, so your opponents are drawing cards.
Yeah.
So you sort of have that group hug effect of like, well, my opponent is getting a lot of resources, but I'm kind of getting something out of the deal too, so I kind of don't want to kill this thing just yet. And so it has that ability to sneak under the radar. I was really hoping that Parlay as a keyword was going to come back now that we have pirates. So I was hoping that maybe there'd be some Ixalans with Parlay, but right now it's only Elf Scouts.
Because Parlay is essentially every other player gets the same thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
well, some sort of the same thing. They don't
kind of
get
reminds me of
life.
the Clash effects, where like you're all kind of competing to see something.
Right. Fair enough. So Ruben, what is your number 10?
Well, Evan, what is your number 10? Because we share a number 10. It appears
we share a number 10. Oh my goodness! Well, look.
Starts.
Well, it's interesting to me that they made a exact functional reprint of this card, which I thought was interesting. I don't know why. Honestly, I thought the original was great because the original showed up in Invasion. It was a common Invasion. So we're old man Magic in here.
Yeah.
This is one of the first cards that when you go like, green white, and I'm just, I'm surfing through green white cards, and you see it, and you go, oh, I mean, it's just.
Oh, that's great. That's a green white card.
The beautiful memories that this card can give you. Armadillo Cloak is a green, white, and a generic mana for a common, at least in Invasion, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has +2/+2/+2, and has trample, and whenever the enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life. So essentially, lifelink +2/+2, and it's trample. Now back in the day, as my cane creaks, creatures were seriously terrible, guys. They were seriously bad, and so this card could see constructed play because the creatures were so bad that when you gave them a bonus like this, like an actual, constructed worthy bonus, it got there.
Yeah. Armadillo Cloak on a Rith the Awakener is a thing. Yeah.
Brian Kibler says hello.
Yeah, Brian Kibler won a Pro Tour with those two cards. Go look those two cards up. Not an exact functional reprint, because if you actually play with Armadillo Cloak, this actually stacks with lifelink. So if you have two Armadillo Cloaks, you actually gain the life twice. Or if you have lifelink and Armadillo Cloak, or Unflinching Courage and Armadillo Cloak on the same creature, you gain twice as much life. But yeah, I mean, Armadillo Cloak, other than first of all, what a name. Let's talk about Armadillo Cloak being as a thing. So I'm super okay with them renaming the effect not after a Texas armored rodent.
You just strap it on. You just put that thing on and you're ready to go.
Yeah, you just put on your Armadillo Cloak. It's crazy. It's just crazy talk.
Well,
it sounds like something Cruella de Vil would try to put together.
Yeah, I wasn't around for the original, but I can certainly attest to seeing an Unflinching Courage on a Geist of St. Traft, or seeing it on an Invisible Stalker, and that's freaking not fun. Like, I can only imagine what y'all went through the first time around.
Yeah, the Unflinching Courage, for those who don't know, was printed in Dragon's Maze and Modern Masters 2017, and basically it's the exact same card, but it's uncommon, and it gives trample and lifelink, not trample and whenever it deals damage you gain that much life, so on and so forth.
Right.
This was old school lifelink before they
and they decided to not go back and change this one, much in the way that Stinkweed Imp doesn't have Death Touch.
Yep.
They just left this one alone. A lot of the effects from back in the day, but yeah, Armadillo Cloak going on like a Yavimaya Barbarian was a big memory of mine. Yeah, that was a tough thing to beat. And a tough thing to lose with. So Armadillo Cloak, a lot of memories, been around forever, and quite iconic.
Fantastic. Number 9. Now, I have a number 9, but I don't have a number 9 to talk about because it's higher on someone else's list, which is awesome because it's a great card. Ruben, what is your number 9?
My number 9, we're going to have our second commander appearance on the list right quick because my number 9 is Riss the Redeemed.
That was on my short list.
Yeah, when you talk about commanders and you talk about what people are trying to build and what they want to build around, Riss the Redeemed almost immediately comes up. It is the tokens commander. If you're making a deck, a green-white deck about tokens, which, let's face it, one of the big things that Selesnya does is token production.
Sure.
Taking advantage of those overrun effects that we were talking about earlier. Riss the Redeemed is high on the list. It's something that you can play on turn 1, and 1 mana commanders are actually few and far between, but you can build your deck in a specific way that you don't necessarily need to have any other 1 mana spells in your deck, which is nice. Riss the Redeemed is, ever since it came out, has been an iconic commander card throughout its entire life cycle.
And for those who don't know, what does it do?
So Riss the Redeemed is a green and a white 1/1. 1 mana, 1/1, either a green and a white. I believe it's an elf warrior.
It is. And
does it have 2 abilities or 3 abilities?
It has 2 abilities.
It has 2 abilities. So it has 2 colorless and then a green-white hybrid and tap to make a 1/1.
A grown 1 green and white elf warrior creature token. Yes.
There you go. And then its Big Daddy ability is 4 colorless Selesnya, and tap, doubling season once, basically.
For each creature token you control, you put a token that's a copy of that creature.
Right, so you can get out of hand quick with that.
It's funny that you mentioned this card because somebody was also playing Reese in the same pod that somebody was playing Selvala in, and I was playing Hapatra, and so I kept killing Reese with Hapatra's ability, and I felt really bad about it. And I was like, oh, I've never faced Reese before, and he's the only creature that can really die to my tokens. And chat was like, don't feel bad, it's a Reese deck. Reese needs to die. I'm like, what? Why? And I just kept killing it.
It gets out of control quick.
Right, and I felt so bad because I didn't want my opponent to think I was picking on them, but chat was like, you have to. Like, you can't let it happen. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, if your opponent doesn't have the lightning greaves, then they're in deep trouble.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, this really is sort of the army in a can. This guy all by himself starts making the tokens and then starts doubling the tokens. You can't leave him alone. You just otherwise bad things will happen. Don't feed him after midnight either. All right. So moving on here, Erin, what is your number 9?
So there's different forms of graveyard hate, and there is the Rest in Peace, Leyline of the Void versions that eliminate your ability to build a graveyard, to have a graveyard. We have the Relica Progenitus, Nile Spellbomb, the nukes that just sort of one time gets rid of your graveyard. We then have the Scavenging Oozes, the Deathrite Shamans that just sort of pick, they just kind of nibble on your graveyard. And then we have Wheel of Sun and Moon. So Wheel of Sun and Moon is split, so you can either pay for it with a white and a green, 2 green, 2 white, or any mixture of the two. It's an enchantment aura. Enchant player. If a card would be put into enchanted player's graveyard from anywhere, instead that card is revealed and put on the bottom of their library. I have to, Evan likes to use the phrase, game recognizes game, and this is a sweet ability. This is a way to deal with graveyards that we just don't see anymore. We had Memory's Journey, but that was like, a shuffle into the library, and it was like an instant. So you only do it once or twice, but this is a thing. Like, this is something you need to deal with. Like, you can't delve your way around it, like what we're doing in Vintage right now, where somebody plays a Cage, you laugh and cast a Gurmag Angler. No, you have no graveyard. But it's not like Leyline where it's simply exile. It just goes right back. And the art is beautiful. I love the flavor text. Every life ends, but life itself never does. I just have to have a lot of respect for this card because it's weird, and it's definitely something I don't want to see, but I recognize it and I respect it.
It's weird and it's beautiful, and because it's Zoltan Boros and Gabor Zixai that they just absolutely killed it. It's from Shadowmoor. It's only been printed in Shadowmoor as far as I know.
Yeah.
So with this one time, and it's already up, sort of starting to climb up in price, I think, due to that. But not too much because it is kind of narrow. But what it does is really cool, really, really unique, and that's what I like most about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I've played quite a few Wheel of Sun and Moons in my day, and it has and the effect that it has on graveyard decks is super unique because, like you said, there's no trigger involved. It just goes to the bottom.
Right.
And so the dredge decks, it's not like it's a huge game ender in that it isn't Rest in Peace. It isn't they're gone forever. If you manage to draw a Nature's Claim 6 turns later, then you can start doing your thing again, as opposed to Rest in Peace where your game is just over. But it is just a haymaker. Like, it's so unique how it's just this huge game-altering effect, but you're able to theoretically recover for it if you top deck well. It's like perfect graveyard hate, I think.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Erin, what is your number 8?
Well, it's been a while since I've been able to say this, but my number 8 is higher on somebody's list.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
And I'm surprised because this seems like a card y'all wouldn't appreciate. So.
Okay.
How dare you?
I get it. Ruben, what's your number 8, buddy?
My number 8 is the only instant on my list, personally. Spoiler alert. But it is a super powerful card that throughout its life cycle in Standard and now in Modern has been quite dominant. My number 8 is Dromoka's Command.
Nice.
Dromoka's Command from Dragons of Tarkir is an instant for a green and a white, and it has the following effect: choose 2 for your 2 mana.
Oh boy.
Choose 2. Prevent all damage target instant or sorcery would deal this turn. Target player sacrifices a creature. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and target creature you control fights target creature you don't control.
Hold on a second. Target player sacrifices an enchantment.
Sorry, sacrifices an enchantment. I misspoke. I apologize.
Gotcha.
There were so many instances of the word creature on the card that I just repeated myself. But yes, target player sacrifices an enchantment, which, to be fair, way better on this effect, because you're already fighting something.
Right.
Dromoka's Command saw play in Bant Company, in Green-White Humans, in any deck that could support Dromoka's Command. Really wanted it, being able to take out things like Always Watchings against the Mono White Humans deck, or fighting slightly smaller creatures, countering burn spells out of the red decks that were popular at the time. It's just an extremely powerful effect for an extremely low cost. 2 mana and at instant speed. Dromoka's Command is just insanely powerful.
Dromoka's Command was my number 9, so I was only off by Uno. But
Right.
but let me tell you, Dromoka's Command, like, this is where Wizards kind of like, I don't know, man. Maybe they were just sitting around going like, maybe we should make the most insane modal spells of all time. How you feel about that? You feeling me? You feeling me? Let's go to lunch. Like, that's just, I don't, like, they just like were like, well, maybe we'll just cut 2 mana off literally every one of these, and we'll make them rare instead of uncommon or something, because it just does everything, and it did everything while it was in standard. It still does great things in modern. It's just, I mean, it's like all these awesome abilities, and there's other commands too that were terrific, and all of them, I think all of them saw a little bit of play at some point in time.
Yes, every single one.
Yes.
Right now, Kolagon's Command is the one that sees the most play. But yeah, every single one of them. Atarka's Command obviously was a hugely powerful spell in Standard for a long time. Even Ojutai and Silumgar's Command both had control decks based around them in one form or another. But Dromoka's Command certainly had the widest ranging effect in Standard at the time. I mean, arguably with Atarka's Command. But it was super powerful.
The other thing I like about this card in particular is that it really showed you sort of how good people were at Magic. This is one of those skill testing. This is one of those, how did they use it? When did they play it? What modes did they choose? When did they, like that type of stuff? Because the more finesse you have with this card, I think it better shows sort of what caliber of player you are. I think if you go back and watch some of the Pro Tour matches with Dromoka's Command in them, take a look at how they play that card and sort of who sort of came out on top in those exchanges. Erin, how do you feel about old Dromoka's Command?
I'm glad I never have to look at it again. I was on the wrong end of that card too many times where it was like, damn it.
I was on the wrong end of it more times than I was on the right end of it too, as well. But
I remember them slapping on like a Fleece main lion where it's like just nothing good comes from it, or the Siege Rhinos where it's like stop.
Yeah, it's also one of those cards that's like so much better on the play that you're like, all right, here's my 2-drop, and then they're like, here's my 2-drop, and then you're like, all right, put a +1/+1 counter on mine and kill your idiot. Go. You're never winning from this spot.
And it's unique
ever
that
again.
it doesn't actually target the enchantment, where it's like target player sacrifices an enchantment. I think that was, I remember that being very noteworthy at the time.
Yeah. So we're going to move on here to my number 8. And my number 8 is one of those that kind of has the spot, deep in the heart, because when I was playing this creature in particular, it was just incredibly good. And part of the reason why it was incredibly good was because, for at least I think the first part of this creature's life, damage was still on the stack. In Alara Reborn, Dauntless Escort showed up. He is a green, a white, and a generic mana for a 3/3 rare Rhino Soldier with fantastic artwork by Vulcan Baga. And it has one ability that says sacrifice it. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So if you could imagine putting damage on the stack, as you used to be able to, and then be like, and we sacrificed my Dauntless Escort, and none of my guys die, and I still dealt 3 damage with my Dauntless Escort, plus all that ridiculous ability. GG's sometimes, or at least it threw up combat. It made combat steps so crazy and difficult, and it just improved your board state almost immediately. And I want to say that the rules changed in the middle of this standard format for Dauntless Escort, like the 10th edition or the M10 rules or whatever came out and took away damage on the stack, and so some of its equity was down a little bit. But you can't really keep him down because he's dauntless. That's how he rolls.
It was exactly. He's not daunted by your by keeping him down. I will say that, I mean, for me, this wasn't even a card for damage on the stack. This was just wrath protection a lot of the time. There was a green-white aggro deck, that sometimes splashed colors, but oftentimes just remained green-white, where you would just go like aggressive 1-drop, aggressive 2-drop, Dauntless Escort, aggressive 4-drop, and then that was it. That was the end of the game, because they couldn't wrath your board. They had to get rid of this 3/3 and then wrath your board, which took a lot of mana. And so if you got off to a quick start, they couldn't do anything about it. I have a lot of great memories of Dauntless Escort. Super, super powerful.
Super fun. All right, so we're going to move on here to, let's see, number 7. I'll drop my number 7 on here because, about what are we out here, like 10 years ago from Ravnica? Is that where we're at?
Here we go.
About 9 or 10 years ago, yeah.
Oh man. Well, one of the things that, and if I recall, this was the first article that Rosewater was writing about Ravnica. Like, he could finally talk about Ravnica. We'd seen Temple Garden. We knew the dual lands were coming. Oh my God. And Mark is like, wait, I've got this other thing in the set that's going to be amazing, and it's called Hybrid Mana. And he's like, check out Selesnya Guildmage. It's a 2 mana, Selesnya, green or white, whatever, for 2 mana. You have a 2/2 that is an uncommon elf wizard. For a green and 3 generic mana, you can create a 1/1 saproling creature token, and for a white and 3 generic mana, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Amazing mana sink, unbelievable in limited. I mean, it actually saw play in my cube for a while now. It later got outclassed because creatures were better. But like at the time, this guy was really, really pushed, quote unquote, for a multicolored card. Like, they were, wow, all these abilities are good. Actually, I think saw a little bit of standard play, but in limited, this card was just bananas, and I loved it, and it was great. It's, to me, it was just one of those hallmark. It brought in hybrid mana to Magic. How much better is Magic because hybrid exists? Selesnya Guildmage was a card that got everybody excited the moment it showed up, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah. The Selesnya Guildmage, particularly, I have a lot of memories of Selesnya Guildmage in Cube because it's one of the few cards that I've seen in like 7 different archetypes. It's like one of those crossover archetype kind of cards where you can play it in your mono white deck. You don't need to make the tokens. You can just like pay 4 mana and have a Glorious Anthem for the turn. You can play it in your mono green deck and just start pumping out 1/1s. And then, of course, you can cross it over if you are lucky enough to be playing both of the colors. I love Selesnya Guildmage. It's great. It did everything you wanted to in that limited format. It did everything you wanted it to in that standard format. It demanded removal spells almost immediately, and you couldn't just pacify it. You had to Faith's Fetters it or kill it in some way. You couldn't just trumpet Warbreak Trumpeter it to make it not attack or block this turn because it's still going to do its damage at the low cost of 2 mana. So if anything exemplifies Selesnya Guildmage is a good choice, and it was the first Guildmage spoiled. So it gets that that big all caps first comment under the YouTube video for its life cycle.
Very nice. All right, so Ruben, what is your number 7?
My number 7 is also a 2 mana creature. That is this one's from Alara Reborn, one of the most played multicolored commons that I can recall ever. Still sees play in Legacy, in addition to, I think it even sees play in Vintage. My number 7 is Kasauli Pride Mage.
Yes. I love that you call it Kasauli.
Kasauli?
I call it Kasauli.
Kasauli. There's no U there.
There's no U. I call it Kasauli because I'm a heathen. But Kasauli. Khaleesi Pride Mage is a green and a white for a 2/2 cat wizard. It has Exalted, which of course was the green-white ability in the Alara block. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And it also has colorless, sacrifice Kasauli Pride Mage, destroy target artifact or enchantment, which is hugely relevant. The fact that you can Green Sun Zenith this thing up and just leave it on layaway until your opponent plays their artifact or enchantment that you need to destroy, meanwhile getting in for your extra damage. The fact that you can play it pre-combat on turn 2 after you've played a 1-drop and get in for extra damage in the Exalted is not irrelevant. It attacks by itself for 3 every turn, which is a solid clock against most decks that you're trying to use its effect with, and destroy target artifact or enchantment is obviously hugely relevant. Kasauli Pride Mage is just a staple of every format that it's legal in. It's always playable, and it is one of the best utility cards for the sort of like prison hate bears kind of deck.
It was also a staple in the birthing pod decks. It was something you could pod into. It was something you could cord into. You can now Coco into it. That was my first experience with Kasauli Pride Mage. It just does everything you want it to do. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And it's so efficient. Like when it first showed up, it was like, wow. I mean, like it's basically a Watch Wolf in and of itself, which while I don't have Watch Wolf on my list, was definitely one that I was thinking of because of how important it was. I know now it's just ridiculous to think, man, 2-mana 3/3, no abilities, people are excited. Like, no, really, we were actually excited. We hadn't seen rates like those, you know, and now we have this card, which is that, and then some, and it's got this disenchant. It was in my cube, if not, it's still in my cube, you know, one of my last iteration I had, because it's been terrific. It's been printed 4 times, including one of them was a F&M foil, and the other half is that, the other thing is that they did not change the artwork, which again, I think is a testament to how awesome the artwork often is.
Right.
Chris Ron
there
did an
was a
amazing
promo
job.
artwork. There was an F&M promo?
There was an F&M promo by Dave Alsop, and it was cool, don't get me wrong, but I love the classic sort of original Kasauli Pride Mage, and this card is terrific and Venene.
Yeah, the fact that you can leave it on layaway, most of these effects like Harmonic Sliver or Reclamation Sage or something along those lines, you have to do it the turn, like you have to wait for them to play it. Whereas this one is already out there. You know, previous to this we had like Viridian Zealot, which was a much higher rate with a lower toughness, didn't have the Exalted trigger. This thing does everything.
Oh man, so good, so good. Aaron, what is your number 7?
My number 7 is also an all-star from Alara Reborn. Lots of love for Alara Reborn here. This card is a staple in the Living End decks. It can fix your mana by use of cycling. So you can get yourself a forest, you can get yourself a plains, or you can just bring it back for a big 4/5 bug that can block things that fly, which is awesome. My number 7 is Pale Recluse. This is a card that a lot of the Living Index have kind of cut in recent years. You know, we've gotten a lot of the new cyclers from Amonkhet, and you know there aren't just that many flyers anymore. You know, to where it's really an issue. But I will always have a place in my heart for Pale Recluse. I have so many memories of cycling this card. It's a 4 green and a white for a 4/5 with reach, which is expensive. It's a common. Like, it's not something you want to be hard casting. But again, the goal of Living End is to get it in your graveyard with cycling. So it also has forest cycling and plain cycling, each for 2 colorless. And so you spend your 2 colorless to cycle, get a land, and then you cast your Violent Outburst or your Demonic Tread, and you get Living End, and then you bring it back. And so it's just a really efficient beater along with the rest of them. And when I think of Selesnya, I think of this big guy. It's a big old spider just crawling on a tower like you do.
It's good.
And it's just great.
Yeah.
It's a really good. I mean, it was a fun card in Limited. I love, and I still love the dual cycling thing.
Yes.
You go get a forest, go get a plains.
Yeah.
It gives you the option. It sets your colors up. You're able to, like, there were so much awesome cycling things going on.
I drafted
a
lot of these.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. And it was good to have and ultimately, you could still slam it late, you know, like it would fix you early, but ideally you would hold on to it and play it late because it was terrific and Limited. That's a 4/5, you know, stopper of all flyers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This definitely was in the school of it does something early and it does something late the basic land cyclers and the regular cyclers are always able to do things like Jesse and Zombies and this card are classic versions of that, and Valley Rennet are classic versions of that. Obviously you want to wait until you can actually use its giant body, but Living End has found a way to do both, which is nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we're going to move on here to number 6. Now, I only have 2 cards in my list that are the same as someone else's. But who has the same as me? And tell us what it is.
So my number 6 is one that I share with Evan.
Yay!
This is a card that recently got a little bit of love thanks to the printing of Jeskai Ascendancy decks. Jeskai Ascendancy decks in Modern, and also to a lesser extent Bring to Light. Bring to Light Scapeshift was a thing for a minute, and this card found a home in both of these decks. It is the only one of its cycle that is Modern legal. All of the other versions of it you cannot play in Modern, but they definitely see play in Legacy and even Vintage in some cases. My number 6 and Evan's number 6 is Glittering Wish.
That's right.
This costs green and a white as part of the wish cycle, which we've talked about in other lists like Burning Wish, Living Wish, things like that. It's green and a white. It's a sorcery. You can choose a multicolored card you own from outside the game, reveal that card, and put it into your hand, and then you remove Glittering Wish from the game. There's also Glittering Wish ad nauseum, which people like to play as well, which gives you some other answers in case you can't go off with the original ad nauseum plan. And it's the only wish that we have in Legacy, and every once in a while it creeps up. You know, they're going to keep printing multicolored cards, and we're bound to get to a point where this card has its moment, and I look forward to it. I think the art's beautiful too, and it's just a great card.
That's awesome. So Glittering Wish, for myself, let's cut to just a hair over 10 years ago.
Yeah, I love this story.
There's an article on MagicTheGathering.com from Brian David Marshall. He used to write a column called The Week That Was. Mm-hmm. And he actually, there was a time when I actually used to play not totally embarrassing Magic, and I did fairly well with a Glittering Wish control deck in the format.
Wow.
And it was so much fun because it was able to run just like a giant dragon. Teneb the Harvester was like the coolest thing ever.
That was the finisher wish target.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you had one in the sideboard if you need to go get it. You played one in the main. Teneb the Harvester, for those who don't know, is a green, white, black, and 3 generic mana, 6/6 legendary dragon. It has flying. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may pay a black and 2 generic mana. If you do, put target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So you're able to zombify or
a graveyard
from anywhere.
Yeah.
It was super good.
It was Abzan control before Abzan control was Abzan control.
Yeah, it was so good.
I love Glittering Wish as well. I used to play Project X in Standard for a while.
What
Project
is that?
Project X was a combo deck that used Safi Eric's Daughter, Crypt Champion, and Essence Warden to gain infinite life.
Yep. I didn't know it was called that, but I'm familiar with Safi.
Yeah, and so you could wish for your Safi if you wanted to. You could wish for your Teneb. You could wish for crime punishment, for example. There were lots of cool things that you could wish for. Glittering Wish, modern control Glittering Wish is a ton of fun as well. I was recently, before they changed the rule to how Brain in a Jar worked, I was playing a Brain in the Jar Beck and Call deck. The Glittering Wish for Beck and Calls to be able to fuse them off of the Brain in the Jar. Look, man, I'm a little bit of a Timmy in addition to a Spike. Or a Johnny in addition to a Spike.
Right.
But yeah, Glittering Wish is super good. It and Coax from the Blind Eternities are the only cards that have the Wish style effect that are legal in Modern right now. And Glittering Wish is very clearly the better of the two.
I mean, I got to play in Standard where my deck had both Wrath of God and Damnation in it. It was awesome. Yeah. It was fantastic. So, yeah, feel free to Google my name in Glittering Wish and you'll find my super cool deck list from 10 years ago. Whoa, something, old man magic. All right, so, Ruben, what is your number 6?
Well, that you appearing on the Wizards.com website is cool and all, but how do you feel about winning a Pro Tour in the hands of Patrick Chapin?
Ooh.
My number 6 is Fleece Lion.
Yeah.
For those of y'all who don't know, you better know. Patrick Chapin been on the Pro Tour for a long time. In the Hall of Fame already. Didn't have 2 things on his resume. He didn't have a Pro Tour win and he didn't have a Worlds win. That's all he cared about. That's all he cared about in the world. And he got his Pro Tour win partially on the back of Fleece Lion, which, for those of you that don't know, is a 3/3 for a green and a white. So it is a Watch Wolf.
Yeah.
That is what Watch Wolf is. 3/3 for green and white. But then, a couple years passed, we go to Theros. Now it has an additional ability. It is a cat, by the way, as opposed to Watch Wolf, which is a hound. This is 3 colorless green-white, Monstrosity 1, which is one of the key words that was from Theros. If the creature isn't monstrous, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it becomes monstrous. As long as Fleece Lion is monstrous, it has hexproof and indestructible. So
why?
Or hexproof, indestructible, never getting rid of this thing ever in a million years. And it's just, that's unbelievable and ridiculous and a great mana sink. But it was also just a 3/3, and most of the time it just killed you as a 3/3 for 2 mana. I remember playing against a lot of Fleece Lions when I was playing my mono red Theros decks. I would be like Fire Drinker Satyr, and they'd be like Fleece Lion, and I'm like, well, crap.
Was
That's
fun.
good.
Was a good time.
This game was really close and interactive. Fleece Mane Lion is spectacularly powerful. It is so good that even Patrick Chapin, the patron saint of blue-black control, couldn't help but have a full set of Fleece Mane Lions in his Pro Tour winning deck.
Oh man, Fleece Mane Lion was again like Watch Wolf. I'm telling you, I know it's hard to believe, but Watch Wolf used to be exciting. 10 years ago, I was a younger man. I got excited about different things. Fleece Mane
Without
Lion.
Watch Wolf, there is no Fleece Mane Lion.
Oh, Lord, no. Fleece Mane Lion, it was just like Watch Wolf, had been breaking records, and you're not really sure why. You can't really catch him in the locker room. You're like, what are you doing, Watch Wolf? What are you doing back there, bro?
You've been juicing Watch Wolf?
You been juicing it? You been juicing it? He's like, what? And when you finally see him, he's all like, bulked out. He's just all like, and he gets cray. I mean, Fleece Mane Lion is a force to be reckoned with. It is value that starts early. It is value. Like, there was that game of, like, when do you try to monstrosity? Because they'll do something in response.
They can respond.
Exactly, because that's the only time you can kill the stupid thing.
The threat of it was all you needed. Like, I would just sit there with 5 mana up and just kill you with a 3/3 that had no counter on. Why? Why would I tap out? Why would I risk my 5 mana if I'm like, all right, here's my 6 land drop, go, and then you're like, ooh, I'm the blue-black control deck, and I gotta go for the throat, go, and then waiting for me to tap out and give me that look, and I'm just like, all right, untap, attack you for 3, and you're like, God, can't believe it, unbelievable.
Oh man, it's a skill tester. It's an amazing Pro Tour winning card. I love it. All right, so my number 5 is higher on someone else's list. That's a thing. But Ruben, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is the purpose of, or is the reason that a legacy deck that has been around for decades, I think decades, maybe just 15 years, but it's the reason why a legacy deck exists in its entirety. It was popular in Standard at the time, and it was popular in Extended, but it's the reason that Enchantress is even a thing. My number 5 is Sterling Grove.
This was my number 8.
Nice.
Okay.
And what does it
I
do?
didn't know if you guys were going to forget about Sterling Grove.
I didn't know if you guys would appreciate it. I thought I was the only one who liked Enchantress decks.
I mean, this card is a green and a white, uncommon from Invasion, has the following abilities. All other enchantments you control can't be the target of spells or abilities, so they gain Shroud. Mm-hmm. And pay a colorless and sacrifice it, search your library for an enchantment card, reveal that card, shuffle your library, and put that card on top of it.
Right.
So it is combination privileged position as well as enlightened tutor in a 2-mana card. That is some insane value, particularly because you typically run 4 of them in your deck. So when you draw your second copy, the first one you drop down and you protect all your other enchantments. Then the second one you drop down, and then the first and the second one become redundant copies, so you can go get whatever it is you need, solitary confinement, what have you. Sterling Grove is super powerful. One of my favorite cards from back in the day. I used to play with it in Standard as well because I was, a bit of a noob. But
he was that guy.
I was that guy. But it is the centerpiece of Enchantress. It's the oil in the wheels. It makes everything run much smoother. Sterling Grove is some powerful magic.
Yeah, I have a great appreciation for it. I have played Legacy Enchantress off and on for a while, and with the rise of Abrupt Decay, we definitely needed an answer because a lot of our things fall to that, and so they have to target this with the Abrupt Decay, which is fine. They have to get rid of this before they want to target your other things, and so I really like this card again because it's so versatile. And Enchantress decks tend to be kind of toolbox decks where we can search for our one-ofs. We don't even need to necessarily run playsets of enchantments, and this was one of the when I was building Enchantress, this was one of the first cards, the play set that I picked up, and so I have a lot of love for this card. And I'm even thinking of, I kind of pussed around with the idea of taking Enchantress to EW, and I'm not going to, but a lot of love for this card. And I played Enchantress or a version of it when it was Standard legal, when we had Eidolon of the Blossoms, and man, I wish we would have had this card back then because that would have been great.
That would have been something else. It's a fun card. I've only got to play the Enchantress deck, I don't know, maybe half a dozen times essentially in my life. Always super duper fun, but I don't have the attachment or the connection that you guys do.
Yeah,
Clearly.
it's one of the things that allows the Enchantress deck to be so toolboxy. I mean, you do have Enlightened Tutor, but you only have so many copies of Enlightened Tutor, and the Enlightened Tutors don't fuel your Sarah Sanctums, right? They don't they don't come back with your replenishes.
Yeah.
And Sterling Grove is an enchantment that protects other enchantments. It's a Mother of Runes. My family protects all families.
Well, you also mentioned the cards that have early and late game potential, where it's like,
Yes.
it can do what you want it to do. When you need the sort of shield effect, it can be that. If someone's going to destroy it, you can in response sacrifice it. Or late game, when you just kind of have them over a barrel, and you don't necessarily need that protection effect anymore. Or let's say the deck you're facing doesn't have a lot of answers, you can sort of shift over. And I think the versatility makes it good too.
Absolutely.
So, Erin, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is a bad Mamma Jamma. She is a character that recently had an update. A newer version of her was printed. Not quite as good as the original. Didn't quite strike fear in the hearts of people the way the original did. This is a card that you need to deal with the minute she hits the board. The problem is there's so few ways to deal with her.
Right.
My number 5 is Sigarda, Host of Herons.
Yeah.
This is a terrifying card. So Sigarda was one of the trio of angels from Innistrad. There was Sigarda, Bruna, and Gisela. Bruna and Gisela ended up melding into that weird abomination in shadows. Sigarda ended up being the good one, who was clean. She didn't get corrupted or anything, and she ultimately had to kill her sister, so she's the last surviving angel. She was the buttercup of the trio. Some people liken them to the Powerpuff Girls, and because she wore green, she was the buttercup. She cost 2 green and 2 white, which is a little steep, a little specific for a legendary creature angel 5/5. Alone, it's scary. Then you see that she's flying in hexproof. So typically when you see a hexproof creature, your first response is, I've got this Liliana of the Veil. I've got this Devour Flesh. This is fine. And then you get to the next part that says spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause you to sacrifice permanents. So the out that you would normally use to deal with a hexproof creature, you can't even do. So there's just this creature just has so few ways to deal with it, but you need to deal with it. This is something that the Abzan decks have started using in Modern against the Jund decks, because what are they going to use to deal with it? This is something I was even seeing people pod into when pod was really getting going off the rails. You could pod in a Sigarda. That's terrifying. She's just a scary card, and I remember that feeling of dread. I still feel that dread when she hits the board, because it's like, what am I going to do?
It's a pretty scary monster flyer. There was a new version, Sigarda Heron's Grace, in Shadows over Innistrad, and it was mythic. It was a green-white, 3 generic mana for a 4/5 legendary angel. Of course, it had flying. However, this one, you and humans you control have hexproof.
Yeah.
And two generic mana, exile a card from your graveyard, put a 1/1 white human soldier creature token on the battlefield. So that's cute and all, but it ain't a 5/5 hexproof, can't make a sacrifice forever. Okay. Hope you got some damage. Hope you got some wraths. Otherwise, that's
basically the only
GG.
way to answer Sigarda was like phantasmal image style kind of things, or all creatures get -X/-X. It was a pretty rough life if you had a Sigarda facing you down on the other side of the battlefield.
Oh man. All right. So let's move on here to number 4. Erin, what is your number 4?
My number 4 recently experienced a resurgence thanks to a rules change that came up thanks to Ixalan. The Wizards decided that Planeswalkers are now going to be legendary permanents, which gave this creature something new to do, specifically in the realm of EDH. She's also one of the major characters of the Weatherlight story. Some would argue she's the reason why the story exists, because the people are trying to find her. Number 4 is Captain Ceesay. So Captain Ceesay is 2 green and a white. She's also a bad Mamma Jamma, while we're on the subject. Legendary creature, human soldier, 2 and 2, which is okay. But then you tap her and you search your library for a legendary card, reveal that card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. After that change that made Planeswalkers legendary, she can now just fetch Planeswalkers. That's what she's doing. There's a young man in my pod who plays Atraxa, and so he was able to, essentially just go looking for Ceesay. And so Ceesay was able to just go looking for things, and, you just go find whatever Planeswalker you want. Before you know it, you got an army of Planeswalkers that you have no way to deal with. And so it's really nice. This creature, she experienced a bit of a buyout recently with a new change, and I love it. And so also, like I said, she's just an important character in the Weatherlight Saga, just captured the ship, and for that reason she is number 4.
Oh man, Captain Sisay is really cool, super important to the story itself. The flavor text on this one is her leadership forged the Weatherlight's finest crew. So she was the leader everybody looked to, and certainly back then she was creature legend. That was their they were trying to make legends really interesting and impactful, and so they had their own type line. Well, later it turned into legendary creature human soldier, so sort of what tribe she belongs to. But yeah, this card is one of those, like, the announcement came out that all planeswalkers are legendary, and Captain Sisay's price doubled. Like, just just boop, there it went. Like, just like that.
Yeah, well, Captain Sisay was already a popular commander. I had a Sisay deck back when I played a lot more EDH, and obviously it's a huge power jump for Sisay to be able to go fetch out Ajani's and whatnot out of your deck. She is one of the few characters in the history of Magic that is just like a celebrity in the world of Magic. Like, she walks around and people recognize her because she's the captain of the Weatherlight. Which was like part of the whole Weatherlight saga, and then of course the story of Tempest was she ended up getting kidnapped, and then part of the invasion storyline when the Weatherlight came back to try to protect from the Phyrexian invasion. Eventually the Weatherlight crashed and stuff like that. So Captain Sisay is a bad Mamma Jamma for sure. Just an excellent card. A lot of value in EDH as well. Being able to basically tap and tutor every turn. And if you're playing a Sisay deck, then you've built your deck to be able to take advantage of her ability. Mm-hmm. And it's not just creatures. You can go get Gaia's Cradles, right? You can go get legendary enchantments. You can go get, planeswalkers now.
Cradle.
Yeah. Legend or legendary card.
I say Gaia's Cradle.
Okay, well.
I say Gaia's, but
you can do what you want.
I don't know. I think I've even said it both ways. Point is, Ruben, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is higher on someone else's list.
Ooh. Well, that lets me talk about my number 4, which is awesome, because this little dude, white often has hate bears, and green has bears.
Oh, no.
And when they come together into one amazing package that showed up in Lorwyn, Gallic Tea is a man. He's a man with a plan, okay? He's a green, he's a white, he's a 2/2 legendary Kithkin advisor. He was a rare from Lorwyn.
He's rude.
He's amazing. Non-creature spells with converted mana cost 4 or greater can't be played. Non-creature spells with X in their mana costs can't be played. You listen to Gallic Tea. Gallic Tea says a word, shut him, sit down. You know what I'm saying? You gonna do what he says. He's not interested in your crap. He doesn't want your cryptic commands. He just wants you super cute, draw X, whatever. No. Gallic Tea's gonna be here, and he's gonna get you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't Wrath of God. You can't Damnate.
I am never happy to see that card. If I'm playing Ad Nauseam, I don't want to see it. If I'm playing Dredge, I don't want to see it. I just don't want to see it. Like, card is a pain.
Amazing image. It's going to get a Judge promo this year, which is awesome.
Beautiful art.
Yeah. I love Gallic Tea. One of those, the storybook world really comes across, I think, in Lorwyn by these legendary characters. They have Doran, and they have Gallic Tea. And the Kithkin looks so really cool and unique and interesting, and the way their bodies are proportioned and whatnot. Like, Gallic Tea is awesome. He's got that hammer right there, or whatever it is. Like, he's ready to throw down some judgment.
Yeah.
No cryptic commands.
He's
None.
got that shillelagh.
Shillelagh?
Yeah, it's a shillelagh. He'll kick your butt with that quarterstaff that he got in his hand.
You got it. Old man, listen to me.
I'm a big fan of Kithkin. Unfortunately, this wasn't able to be played in the standard Kithkin deck, even though it was just an unreal Kithkin card. But I've played a lot of Gallic Tea in Modern and Legacy, particularly in Maverick decks. Gallic Tea is a BA, that's for sure.
He says no force of will. He says, get that
no
right
force
of
will. I mean, I've used Green Sun Zenith to go get Gallic Tea and then not been able to cast Green Sun Zenith again, which is awesome. That's always my favorite. Yeah, we built our deck correctly. That's like the people who play like turn 1 Weathered Wayfarer and turn 2 laying in Arbiter in Modern, and it's just like, where did you go to deck building school? That's exactly the same with Gallic Tea and Green Sun Zenith. But yeah, I love Kithkin, and I love Lorwyn. I can't wait to go back to Lorwyn. That's my Kamigawa. That's my when are we going back story.
I'd like to go back because I wasn't around for it the first time, so I would love to. I'd be up for that.
My favorite synopsis of Lorwyn is that it was the most complicated draft format ever, and that's why John Finkel won that Pro Tour.
Yep.
Because it was stupidly complicated, and I loved every second of it.
And he won that Pro Tour, that top 8, with a lot of Kithkin in his deck.
He did.
He won with that famous 3-for-1 with coordinated barrage, and was able to win Pro Tour Kuala Lumpur.
All right, so we're going to move on here to number 3, which I can't discuss because it's higher on someone else's list, which is fine. It's okay. I don't care. Whatever. Ruben, what is your number 3?
So once upon a time, there was this artifact that was so powerful. It was unspeakably dangerous and powerful, and no one could wield its power. And just being in the wake of its effect, you could feel
The wake, you say?
The wake of Meraris Wake, being in its general vicinity granted you power. Meraris Wake is my next one on the list. Boy, is Meraris Wake a hell of a card.
It's pretty good.
3 colorless, green, white, has 2 enchantment, has 2 effects. Creatures you control get +1/+1.
Okay.
That typically costs about 3 mana.
All right.
That effect usually, Glorious Anthem, that effect usually is 3 mana. So we got 2 mana more of effect that we're looking for, right? So we're not asking for much here. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. Well, that effect costs 4 or 5 at least.
Oh, God.
So you're getting like 7 or 8 mana worth of effect on this 5 mana enchantment. That's originally a rare from Judgment. I played so much Meraris Wake decks. I played so many. I played it in Standard, where my finisher was Elephant Ambush, and I would just rebuy it with Cunning Wish off of Merari, being able to wish it back to my hand and then wish another wish back to my hand. Yeah, those were the days we lived in. I played it in Old Extended for a while, just to be able to ramp things up. It's still in basically every Legacy and Vintage cube that you can imagine.
Yep.
It is just one of my favorite all-time cards. It gives me so much joy whenever I play a Meraris Wake, because it brings me personally back to a lot of my own personal memories. And yeah, I just love it.
Wizards, well, back when Judgment came out, you got to think about the set before it, which was Torment. Now, Torment was the black set. Torment had more black cards than green or white cards. There were 40 black cards, 28 blue and red, but only 21 green and white cards in Torment. However, Judgment was when the pendulum swung back.
Yep.
And there were only 16 black cards and 33 green and white cards. And this is one of those like hallmark. It's going to define the set, right? This is the return of the green and white, and wow, they really gave green and white an amazing card to be proud of and to show off, because after all this sick black stuff, they're like, yeah, this card's just going to do the best thing ever for a good long time and be in all the cubes and enjoy it for the rest of the Magic's history, because wow.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a good way to kind of describe Judgment, was green white strikes back.
Yeah, there was a young man. I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, it's all right. I was just going to say there are a couple other green-white cards from Judgment, particularly Crozen Verge, that made Meraris Wake particularly potent. When the set came out, interestingly enough, Meraris Wake wasn't the green-white card that got all of the press. Do you happen to know what the card was that got all of the press? I guarantee you none of us have it on our lists.
Nope.
It's called Anorid Brushhopper, and it was a big fat toad that was a green, a white, and a colorless for a 3/4 that could blink itself. But unfortunately, the cost of blinking itself was too darn high.
Discard 2 cards.
You had to discard 2 cards. But Meraris Wake somehow snuck under the radar and became the Selesnya card du jour of Judgment.
Yeah, I was playing Commander before the pre-release on Saturday, and there was a young man who was on Ramos, and he played this card, and then cast Genesis Wave for 42.
Nice.
And needless to say, we all scooped at that point. And yeah this card, my boyfriend also runs it in his Allies list. He plays Allies EDH,
nice.
And so his is a 5-color deck, and so he
plays General Tarsi.
Tazri, yes.
Tazri?
Yes. And
the name of this episode is Ruben mispronounces names.
Ruben puts the wrong emphasis on the wrong
syllable. So he uses this card to make his allies get out of control very quickly, and it's a very good card.
Oh man, Meraris Wake is a super, super sweet card. However, Erin, what is your number 3?
My number 3 and my number 2, I'll just save some time, are both higher on other people's lists.
Oh my gosh, well...
I get to be that girl this week. I'm normally not.
Wow. All right, well, that's fine. Well, we're going to jump over here to my number 2 in that case. And I don't want to get it wrong, so I'm looking it up. So, This one was a card again. This one came out in Ravnica. You know, these are our big sort of multicolor sets. A lot of Alar Reborn, a lot of Ravnicas. This guy was, and again, I got to put you in this time frame, in this world where we're coming off of Kamigawa. Kamigawa, as much as I love it, was kind of lame. Like it ended on like a wet fart, and like, you know, you don't ever want that, like a staining, like something's back there, and you got to go excuse yourself. And so Saviors was bad, y'all. Y'all don't even know, but Ravnica was coming, and it was gonna get better. And when they debuted Loxodon Hierarch, people lost their crap. It was like, what? 4 mana for a 4/4? We don't get 4 mana for 4/4s. You're just like running upstairs, waking everybody. Hey guys, it's gonna be 4 mana for 4/4s. You're like 4 mana 4/4s, and like everyone just loses the crap. And P comes out. It's great.
What's the downside?
There's absolutely zero. It's absolutely amazing. You like there has to be a drawback, but there's none.
There just isn't.
No, it's a green, a white, and 2 generic mana for a 4/4 rare elephant cleric. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 4 life. It's a 4 mana 4/4 that gains you 4 life. It's already just like head, shoulders, knees, and toes above 92% of whatever Kamigawa was doing. Green, white, sacrifice it, regenerate each creature you control. So this thing just like, people were so excited, and it was amazing. We finally got amazing creatures. This is really where I think you started to see that uptick. There's no more gifts ungiven. No. There's Loxodon Hierarch who's going to come and get you, and who I think Loxodon Smiter was really just kind of like a callback to the awesomeness of Hierarch, because Hierarch just, it was in a ton of decks. It was in that deck, for the Glittering Wish control deck. I'm playing Loxodon Hierarch, man. This card was awesome from day one.
I would, so in that Project X deck that I was talking about, oftentimes I would try to combo, but sometimes I'd be playing against just like, a mid-range deck that would be able to interrupt my combo. And so instead of using the card, another Selesnya card, Congregation at Dawn, to go tutor up my combo, I would just Congregation at Dawn for 3 Loxodon Hierarchs.
Get you.
Just be like, all right, here's some idiots. Beat them. Good luck.
Here are some zoo animals. They're going to stomp your face now. Good luck getting over that.
That's a great choice.
Oh, man. And Loxodon Hierarch, he was getting rid of Bridge from Belows in Standard.
Being a sacrifice effect in and of itself.
He was doing it.
Countering, being able to save other...
I rebuke it.
I've been rebuked.
Being able to save your other creatures like Dauntless Escort, and gain life against those red decks. This card did everything.
Oh God, it surely did. Ruben, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is higher on someone else's list.
Oh my goodness, that means we get to go through our number 1s?
So I know, because my 4 is higher and my 2 is higher, I know what the 3 number 1s are.
Wow. But you don't know in which order and who.
I don't know which order.
Okay. Well, look.
I'm going to guess in my head.
Fair enough. Well, look. We can stay in the world of Alara, and we can talk about one of the coolest creatures ever. One of the creatures that if you go back and you watch my Magic shows back then, I was like, this creature right here is bananas. Now, granted, people just locked on to other things I was wrong about, which I understand. Never really, and I'm saying I was robbed. I'm saying I was a little robbed a little bit. Knight of the Reliquary. Knight of the Reliquary is amazing. It's a green, a white, and a generic mana for a rare human knight that's just a 2/2, 3 mana 2/2. Okay, whatever. But however, it gets +1/+1 for each land card in your graveyard. It also has tap, sacrifice a forest or plains, search your library for a land card, not a basic, but any land card, put it into play, shuffle your library. It doesn't come into play tapped, comes into play untapped. Goes and gets any land card, and as we know, the longer we play Magic and the longer that Magic exists, lands are getting better. Lands are doing different things. Lands are more powerful than they used to be. Lands are super cool. They're not going to have lands be destroyed anymore. However, Knight goes and tutors things, and Knight of the Reliquary gets super huge, super fast. Basically, Ruben, like this is just like the backbone of your Maverick deck. This is this is a legacy-defining card.
This is my raison d'etre for my legacy deck. This is the purpose for its existence.
Yes.
Knight of the Reliquary is, geez, man, I could just bask in its glory. More recently, it's become a modern combo kind of deck where you just have this sort of Bant mid-range deck, and then you can combo Knight of the Reliquary with a card called Retreat to Coral Helm, get every land out of your deck, play a Sajiri step to get your Knight of the Reliquary protection from a color of the blockers that you're attacking, and then swing in for 42.
Or just use Retreat to tap them all.
Yeah, or use retreat to tap all your opponent's creatures as well. So yeah, Knight of the Reliquary, I mean, I just have great love for it. It is spectacularly good. I had this wrong. I actually thought Knight of the Reliquary was going to be Erin's number one.
Wow.
Why would I want something that tutors up Bajuka Bogs? Do you know how many times I've been on the wrong end of this card where I'm like, oh, it's safe to go off. Nope. Yep. Tap, sack a crappy thing. Oh, Bajuka Bog. Oh, 2 Bajuka Bog. Oh, Tabernacle. It's just like, oh, nothing good comes from this card. But I have to respect what it does. I have to respect that it is an eternal staple, modern and legacy. You got to give credit where it's due, and this card has certainly earned it.
There's few cards where you can say like they literally define part of the format.
Yes.
Knight of the Reliquary, if it did not exist, part of that format would be different, changed, or absent if it didn't exist. It also
not just Maverick, but also the 4-color lands decks that started popping up middle of last year. Use Knight of the Reliquary as their big finisher if they can't combo off with Dark Depths, Thespian Stage combo. Yeah, Knight of the Reliquary is just, I mean, it's everything.
Ruben, what is your number one?
My number one, again, I think that we can say is pretty format defining. It's been a part of every metagame that in standard and then in modern for its entirety. Even though it's an uncommon, it is exploding in price, up to $15, $20 a piece. Even has a promo version of itself. It's a central piece of several different types of combos in Modern. My number one is Kitchen Finks.
Oh, man. So good.
Colorless and 2 hybrid mana, so 3 mana total, for a 3/2. Oof. Oof creature. Oof, there it is.
Wow.
When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life, and it has Persist. Which was one of the Shadowmoor keywords. In Standard, that basically meant you couldn't play red. It would gain life and then trade with 2 of your idiots. It was also quite good against control. You would just want it in against control decks because they couldn't kill it in one fell swoop either. One fire spout would just let you have a 2/1 on the back end and keep attacking. And then we scoot back in format, and now we go to Modern, and it is a central piece of the Coco and Birthing Pod and anything that has a Viscera Seer or a Vizier of Remedies or a Malira Sylvok Outcast. That's the combo to be able to go off with Persist, to be able to gain infinite life. And yeah, it is just a hell of a card that will continue to be spectacular.
I'm consistently amazed by the number of people who want nothing more in this mortal coil to win the game with a Kitchen Finks with a counter on it. Birthing Pod happened, and it was really annoying. Birthing Pod got banned, and we were like, all right, we're finally going to be free. This is totally great. Then Anafenza, the mono white one, came out.
Kintree Spirit.
Right, and people were like, It game on, and no matter, you can do so many things in Modern. You can cast a turn 3 Karn, you can go to -53 and throw your deck at somebody, you can play Storm, but damn it, there are some people that want nothing more than to play Kitchen Finks and Gavany Township. That's all they want to do, and bless their hearts. But this is their win con, and they will find any excuse to make it happen. Coco now, Vizier of What's Its Nuts.
Vizier of Remedies. If you needed a 5th creature to combo with your Kitchen Finks, by the way, we also still play Archangel of Thune.
Which is fine.
To put the +1/+1 counter back on the Kitchen Finks.
Death Cloud even uses this, because if you cast Death Cloud, you sacrifice it to Death Cloud and it comes back, and then your opponent loses to a crummy 2/1.
So for those who don't know, Persist is when this creature goes to the graveyard from play. If it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to play with a -1/-1 counter on it. So you could essentially deal 3 damage or whatever, go attacking, kill something, it dies, it comes back as a 2/1, but you still gain that 2 life. So you're gaining it's 4 life. It's somewhere around 5 power. It's super consistent. It's very persistent, if you will. And I mean, it's
nevertheless,
it's just
B+.
I know, right? Thanks. What are those again? It's like you're in green, you want to play this card. You're in white, you want to play this card. This card is just value on top of value. It's power equal to its mana cost, so it's already on that curve. It was fantastic from the moment it saw print. I am in love with Kitchen Finks. I have played infinite Kitchen Finks.
And that Kev Walker art is just unbelievable.
Just so good.
I know they've made a promo at this point, but that Kev Walker art, man, I just can't. possibly.
Second to none. Speaking of second to none, Erin, what is your number one to close out the show?
Oh man, no pressure. My number one was the shining light of an otherwise craptastic set. I think of Evan when I think of this card.
Same. That's why I thought it was his number one.
Because there was a token made for this card that Evan got to embody. He had to be the visual representation of. And there is an official token, but I don't even use that, and I don't even look at it, because when I need to use the token, and the rare times I've used this card, I use my Evan Irwin token. This card changed the way the game is played. We were in a format where blue-white control was all the rage. We had detention spheres, Sphinx's Revelations, and this card was an answer to that. It really made you change the way that you played. My number one's Voice of Resurgence.
Yeah.
Famous story with this card too. This card also got swapped with Amara Tandris. Some of you may not know this, but this is what Amara Tandris was supposed to be. The green and a white, it's a 2/2 creature elemental. Whenever an opponent casts a spell during your turn, or when Voice of Resurgence dies, you get a green-white elemental creature token with this creature's power and toughness is equal to the number of creatures you control. That was supposed to be Amara's ability. And what Amara Tandris was the 5/7 nobody cares. That was Voice of Resurgence. And at the very last minute, they switched, and now we got Voice. And this card gave blue-white control fits. Again, this is a card that sees play in Modern. This is a really good turn to play. Again, in the pod decks, this is something you can sacrifice it. You get some value out of it. You can blink it. It forces the opponent to play around this card. I've walked into this card more times than I can count. It's just a very, very good card. This was also seen in the Little Kid Junk list. There was a list that ran around Modern for a while that was just a green-white beat stuff, where it was like Wilt Leaf Liege. And this card got very scary with that card. And this is a format-defining card. It was the one good thing about Dragon's Maze. And I think it deserves to be number one.
Absolutely.
I certainly can understand how you would expect me to have it there at number one. That said, I feel like, there's an amount of impact, there's an amount of format definingness, there's different things, like Locks on Hierarch for me was a very high point in Magic.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, but Voice of Resurgence was on my list. It was my number 5, and
my number 2. Reliquary was my number 4, by the way.
Nice. Well, every once in a while you have a big old steaming turd. And in that turd, there might be a gold nugget shining in there. And you're like, what? But you don't really want to dig in, but sometimes you got to. And Voice of Resurgence was there when you needed it. And Ruben, you're welcome. You're welcome for that.
Voice of Resurgence.
Voice of Resurgence, I mean, Dragon's Maze was one of the few sets that, like, after Brad and I, went through it, we were just like, cameras are off. We're like, man, I don't know, man. This set seems kind of And we're like, yeah, every card was like, the whole thing, and it tried hard, but whatever it was trying to do, it didn't make happen. But Voice of Resurgence happened. This thing has just like the sickest ability. Like, where you tip over from like really good to great is whenever an opponent casts a spell during your turn.
Yeah.
Like, when it dies, you get a token, whatever. But no. Not letting them end of turn do whatever they want without paying for it. That was huge. Trying to somehow do that. Go ahead.
And turns out switching Amara with Voice of Resurgence means that this effect is on a non-legendary creature. And when you have 2 Voice of Resurgences in play, that is like nightmare scenario for control decks. When you go turn 2 Voice, then you're just like, I know they have 3 mana, but the worst case scenario is another 2-drop.
Yeah, so turn 2,
Voice of Resurgence.
Right, turn 2 on the play, your opponent is never going to want to counter your spells. Just like, period. So if they want to just, shoot control in the heart, well, Voice of Resurgence, do it.
And don't forget that, like, Azorius Charm was a big part of the control decks back during this era as well. So, Voice of Resurgence, not just, 2 bodies plus for a low opportunity cost of 2 mana, already a bear, already a 2/2. Voice of Resurgence is spectacular.
It's awesome. And I do love my token. I'm not going to lie. My token was super sweet. Kristen Plesko did an amazing job. And, I got Captain Tickles on my arm, and I got 3 dudes seriously up here on my shoulder. And
Yep.
I got, Goblin Warren Instigator is up on my shoulder. Like, nice. It's super, super awesome. All the callbacks to all my almost like famous misses or silly, nicknames. But that said, that ends our top 10 favorite Selesnya cards. We want to hear from you about what card we didn't talk about, because we'll select our favorite to win.
There's a couple. There's a lot of good Selesnya cards. There's a couple we didn't talk about that I'm actually surprised weren't on any of our top 10 lists. So,
I feel like we're always going to kind of miss something.
We are.
And
That's
it's
good.
And that's good.
And
that's where you guys come in.
That's right. That's where the audience lets us know, hey, you know, this is something you should have brought up. You should have talked about. That's a thing. We'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before I go, or before we go, I want to thank my co-hosts. Thank you, Erin.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you, Evan.
Absolutely. As we go to our, when I can get to it, final slide. So I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Erin Campbell and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Visit our website at MagicMikesPodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters. Or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv/MagicMikes, on Twitter at MagicMikesCast, on Reddit at Reddit.com/r/MagicMikes, and on Facebook at Facebook.com/MagicMikes. Talk to us privately at MagicMikesPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMikesPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week for another Top 10 episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.